Purple Ties Podcast. Great stories of Trevecca Trojans and life on the hill. Welcome in. Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Gruff. Welcome to episode 5 of the Purple Ties Podcast. I'm in Hermitage, Tennessee. Our producer, DK, is in an undisclosed location, and Michael Johnson is live in Old Hickory, Tennessee, and he'll be introducing our guest for episode 5 in just a minute. I want to encourage you to share our broadcast, to like it. You'll see the comments section down there. We will take comments if we can get to them, so be sure and make some comments there. You can encourage our guest or what other questions you may have for us. But now, Michael, the master of atmosphere, it's your turn to introduce our guest for episode 5.
Well, at least I used to be, Greg. Maybe someday again in more, Jim. But, man, I am so excited about today's shows, really. And we're going to be highlighting just some wonderful people and dear friends of mine across the years. In fact, I've known this particular episode's guest literally all her life. We are so happy to welcome in Jennifer Wilson to the show today. Jennifer spent 4 record-setting years roaming that beautiful floor and more gym, and set nearly every known Trojan record during her career. When she finally was able to hang up the sneakers for good as a player there, she left Trevecca as its first and only 4-time All-American with a school record 2,109 points. She played for Coach Julie Van Beek Heisey, and Julie had some great things to say in Jennifer's Hall of Fame introduction. And so in the pre-conference of her freshman season, Julie said that Jennifer ended up scoring about a point for every minute she played. And I guess Coach Van Beek realized that if she would play more minutes, she would score more points. And so she really did come in at a great time. Coach Van Beek Heisey mentioned Holly Carter, Mindy Williams, Ashley Boykin, Sarah Manise already being there. And Jennifer came in with Jamie Mills and Molly Schoenberg. And it really took Trevecca's women's basketball program to a whole new level. Here are a couple more quotes from Julie. She said not only could she score, but she had the ability to make the other players on the court better. She was very smart and one of the most competitive players I've ever coached. I remember seeing that competitive fire in Jennifer. I remember her ability to drive hard and just stop on a dime and pull up and shoot a jumper or get all the way to the rim. I remember personally being really enthralled with her. Going back to Coach Van Beek Heisey, she said that Jennifer recognized that when she screened, she would often take 2 defenders with her and open up a shot for another shooter. She was a great passer to the post, especially to Lindsay Fly. I loved seeing that. Jennifer had a beautiful shot and made a living off of that baseline pull-up jumper. I'm seeing visions of one right now when we were playing Lipscomb in those early days in Jennifer's career, driving hard there to the baseline and pulling up to shoot that jumper. Boy, it was just special. So Jennifer knew how to rise to the occasion. Again, quoting Coach Van Beek Heisey, she had some of her best scoring nights against Lipscomb and Union and hit game winners in numerous games, most notably against number 1 Southern Nazarene and then Freed Hardeman in the Trans-South semifinals back in the day. The former Warren County standout burst onto the scene in her freshman season, leading Trevecca to its first ever appearance at the NAIA Championships. Among other highlights, as a result of her play and the team's success, listen to this, Wilson was named the Trans-South Newcomer of the Year, selected to the Trans-South first team, and made the All-Trans-South freshman team. She was named the NAIA Region 11 Player of the Week. Another first for Wilson and the young program came when Jennifer was selected as the NAIA Player of the Week during that season and later made NAIA All-American second team. In each of her 4 seasons at Trevecca, Jennifer Wilson led the team to the NAIA National Championships compiling an overall 90 wins, 40 loss record, an average of 22 wins and 10 losses a season, really a little over 22. Making this record even more impressive is the fact that Trevecca had only restarted the women's program just 3 years prior, winning only 32 games in those first 3 years. Very quickly, in all, when Wilson capped her career off there in Moore Gym, she held 18 Trevecca women's basketball records. She still holds 7 game, season, and career records, including career points at 2109, field goals made, field goals attempted, season records in points per game and attempted field goals, and in single game records and points with 35 and a 3-point percentage when in a single game when she made all 4 against an opponent whom I cannot remember at this point. So it was Lipscomb, that a girl. So following her playing career, Jennifer has gone into coaching. She was 5 years on the Trevecca women's basketball staff, first as a graduate assistant, then later as an assistant. And just this week, Jennifer was named the new head coach for the Mount Juliet High School. Is it Bears or Golden Bears? I can't.
It's Barrett's.
Barrett's.
Yes.
Thank you. Hey, I could go on and on. I love this lady. I think she's one of the most amazing athletes I've ever witnessed play. And on top of that, she's an even better person. And what a great opportunity for us to have her here on Purple Ties podcast today, Greg.
Absolutely. Jennifer, when you hear all that stuff, I know you're not one, you were never one who sought the spotlight. You really didn't throughout your whole career. To get you in a post-game interview, you had to be asked. It was never, you weren't one of those athletes that were hawking around trying to get extra stuff. You just did your work on the court. Talk about when you hear all that stuff and you relive all these things. And I guess you're probably doing that even more with the change in job this week.
When I hear all that stuff, it makes me happy because when I think about all those things, I went into my basketball career not wanting to let anybody down. I was going in on a full scholarship. I wanted to earn it. And I went through my 4 years, and I don't think I could have done any more than I did. And the fact that I can look back on my basketball player career and have no regrets, on top of which I want to note that, I was able to be as successful as I was. It makes me think back to all my teammates, and it makes me think back through, Coach Van and the different things that she taught me as I was growing into the player that I was, because I was a good player coming in, but I was an even better player when I finished. Yeah. And that is, directly attributed to Coach Van Beek. And so, I don't like to hear anybody pour over and over and over all the things that I did, but what it makes me think is, I sought to do a good job, and I did a good job.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Michael talked about some memories that he had, and I certainly have a few from watching you play. In particular, you think about the last second shots and just the coolness that you did that with. But again, you had to have somebody get you the ball in that position, right, and things like that. So to your credit, but you hit them. They couldn't hit those shots, and I know that was, in particular, one that just stands out for me was against Southern Nazarene. They were number 1 at the time in our gym. Mm-hmm. I don't think many people thought we had a chance to win, but was very excited to see you knock that shot down to get the win. But there was a lot of other stuff that I think was great over your career that we may touch on as we go on. I got to ask this question, and we're going to bring in your new boss here in just a minute. But I want to talk about some of the bosses that you've had, starting with your dad. So I'm going to put you on the spot. You've had some pretty good coaches through high school, your dad at home, and then also Coach Van Beek, Heisey, and also Gary Van Addy. You worked with him, and I don't know everyone else that you may have worked with. Who did you learn the most from as a coach?
I learned the most from my dad, probably. Just growing up around basketball, watching the game of basketball, learning how to play the game of basketball. understanding as a player, Michael mentioned that Coach Van had said I was a smart player. I was a smart player because I understood the right way to play the game of basketball. And I learned the right way to play the game of basketball from my dad. As far as other coaches that I have worked with, I learned a lot from Gary Van Atta. I learned a lot from playing, with Coach Van and understanding the importance of it's not about any sort of individual, it's about team. And you got to have everybody. And so outside of those are probably my three biggest influences as far as learning how to coach and how to manage a team. I learned best from Coach Van how to manage a girls' team and how to establish those relationships and how to get the most out of. I learned a whole lot of basketball from my dad and from Gary Van Atta.
One of the things I wanted to ask you too is, and I think Michael might have come close to this, but how did you, when it came to choosing Trevecca, and we got some pictures of actually when you signed and with Trevecca, and that was a big day on the hill, but you grew up at Trevecca, because your dad was coaching there while you were growing up, and everybody remembers you shooting the basketball at halftime, before the games and after, and all that kind of stuff. How hard was it to come back to Trevecca to play, or was it just always in your mind that was going to happen?
No, I didn't want to go to Trevecca. Like you said, I grew up there and I didn't want to go. If I'm being honest, I wasn't heavily recruited out of high school. I kind of got banished to Warren County, growing up in Nashville for my last 3 years in high school. And the AAU circuit wasn't very good. And so I wasn't heavily recruited. I did have a couple other offers, but the bottom line is me really not wanting to go. It was Julie Van Beek. I wanted to play for her. She sold me. And that is the biggest and pretty much the only reason. It wasn't because I grew up there. It wasn't because my dad coached there. Because like I said, I had no plans to do that. It was Julie Van Beek. I wanted to play for her.
All right. Well, now we're gonna bring in your new boss, and it's Leanne Rainey, who is the principal at Mount Juliet, and just talk about the process of you becoming the new girls coach at Mount Juliet High School. You were the volleyball coach for 12 years now. Leanne, welcome in. Glad to have you on the podcast.
Thank you guys for having me. We really appreciate it.
When you found out, because Mount Juliet's a unique place, they've won a lot of girls and boys basketball games, won a lot of games in sports over the years, but you had the job in this time to have to replace the boys coach, the girls coach, and now you're having to replace the volleyball coach as well. Just talk about that process and really what led you to hiring Jennifer.
Sure. We So a little history. The Mount Juliet High School girls basketball team is one of our most successful programs at Mount Juliet. It is a foundational program that's been led by Chris Fryer for many, many years. And so with him deciding to retire, we knew that we had a lot in front of us. We did put together a search team, and as a former college athlete and high school athlete myself, I'm very, very particular about our coaches. I have a very particular style that I look for, and we always want to make sure that we are maintaining the character of the kids and the character of the coaches. That always has to come first. One of the main things that we were looking for the most part was we wanted a good foundational coach. I want the students to be building their strongest foundational development that they possibly can, so that we are getting them ready to go on to the post-secondary level. And so when we're looking for coaches and what we're looking for, what we saw in Jennifer is that she has all of that experience. She has all of the background. She has collegiate coaching experience. She has high school experience. And then we have seen her on the floor in a coaching capacity for 12 years and seen how she works with the kids and what kind of relationship she has. So she meets all of the requirements that we're looking for. And then I've also had the pleasure of getting to know Jennifer quite a bit over the past couple of years that I've been with them. And she's an amazing person. She has heart for the kids. She does everything full out. And I cannot wait to see what she's going to do in this position and where she's going to take Mount Juliet girls basketball from here.
Well, we're seeing a picture right now, or we're seeing some pictures of her as a player, but also in the coaching role that she's had, and she does have some experience in coaching. But one of the things that we're very proud of is that not only do you have Jennifer there, and she's been there for 12 years, but Trevecca and Mount Juliet have a long history of athletes and coaches. Gary Vanatta, who she coached with at Trevecca, was a coach there and a player there, and we have a long run of great athletes that have come there. In fact, you have as your baseball coach, Zach Tompkins, a former Trevecca grad now as well. But just talk about searching for a coach during these times. We all know what everybody's going through, but you're having to do a lot of stuff virtually and hire things. And just talk about the challenge of that.
Sure, that's interesting. Right now, normally we get to spend a lot of time one-on-one and face-to-face and give tours of the building, and we of course can't do any of that now. So we have to rely on becoming masters of Zoom calls and functioning in a total virtual reality world. But on the other hand, it does give us a much easier way to reach out and to get in touch with candidates much more quickly, rather than having to wait and schedule times for them to come all the way in, especially if they're coming from a long way away. So it has made it's simple to reach out, jump on a Zoom call real quick, and interview more people that we could do in a live setting. So I think that's been a real positive. And then on the other hand, you have to rely a lot on their references. You have to do a whole lot of research and a lot of homework because you can't get that one-to-one feel. So it's got its challenges, but it's also presented some definite positives. Of course, we're lucky enough that we know Jennifer well enough that we've been around her in person. So she's had a face-to-face interview with me every day for the past 2 years, I think. So she's had a lot more with me than the others.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Leanne Rainey, principal at Mount Juliet, and we pray for you guys as you guys go through this summer and get ready to go back to school in the fall.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right. We're going to bring Michael Johnson back in, and Michael, as we do, I will tip the question back to Jennifer. Just what drew you to this job now? You've been a volleyball coach. You obviously have the great basketball pedigree, but what about this job drew you to it to apply to change from volleyball back to basketball?
Well, I will tell you this. When I started at Mount Juliet High School, I wanted to coach basketball, and I just didn't have the opportunity. There weren't any openings, and my second year in, Tim Bell, who also is a Mount Juliet Trevecca guy, he asked me if I wanted to coach volleyball. I said, no, I'm not a volleyball coach. I'm a basketball coach. And so they hired somebody else. And then the next year, I realized I wasn't going to get a basketball opportunity, for a while, because you had, Chris Fryer. He'd been there forever. He'd been very successful. And so I thought, coaching is coaching. I'll try volleyball. And so the first couple years, I did interview and try to get a high school basketball job. Didn't find one that fit. And then after about 4 or 5 years coaching volleyball, I fell in love with it. I loved it. And went on to coach however many years after that. And I can tell you, didn't think about basketball again. Just didn't. And this happened so very quickly. It's ridiculous. I saw it. I saw that Coach Fryer had resigned, and I immediately sent a message, hey, I'm interested. And I kind of hem-hawed around and kind of drug my feet a little bit because I love coaching volleyball. It has nothing to do with volleyball and everything to do with, this is probably the only basketball job on the planet that I would take to pull me away from my volleyball situation at Mount Juliet High School. And it's because it's Mount Juliet girls basketball. And I love Mount Juliet. I've worked at Mount Juliet for 14 years, and it also, what's appealing to it, it's a challenge. It's a rebuild. And I've not ever shied away from any sort of challenge, and it's not going to start now. And I'm very excited to see what I can do.
Michael, I think you're muted over there, but there you go.
Thanks. I was just going to say very quickly that one of the things that I've really enjoyed about this particular segment is listening to Jennifer talk about her passion for what she's doing. The fact that she really did want to be a basketball coach, but found her way to this job via a different sport. And what I'm thinking about right now is that all of the influence that she's had in coaching were people who were coaching more than the sport that they were coaching. They were coaching people. They were taking situations, and that's what a coach really does well. The X's and O's of a given sport are obvious, but a lot of tacticians know the game well, but if they can't translate it well to their players, it is a real challenge to be successful. And so I have every reason to believe that all the influences that Jennifer's had in her life and her demonstrated ability to be successful, even in a sport that wasn't her original great love, is a testimony not just to her ability to pick up on the nuances of a game, but her ability to translate what it is that she wants to instill in her players. And that's where the ultimate success really comes from, I think. And I have every reason to believe, Jennifer, that you're gonna have a great run now at Mount Juliet with the basketball team.
Well, thank you. The very kind words, and I'll do the best I can.
Just on the job itself, what in the world are you going to do over this summer with all the challenges that you have? Obviously you have been dealing with your volleyball team in this, but how do you start? Have you even thought about starting a new job with a new team with these challenging times right now?
Of course, I've thought about it. Kind of handcuffed right now because like Miss Rainey said, we can't get in the building. We don't have any sort of interaction. And so as far as tryouts go, as soon as we can have tryouts, we're going to. As soon as we can start preseason workouts, we're going to try to get as ready as we can. Other things up in the air, are we going to start basketball season on time? Because are they going to start fall sport seasons on time? Are we going to push back? So there are all these things that are up in the air right now. The only thing I'm trying to accomplish right now, I'm trying to figure out who's going to help me and assistant coaches, and trying to get those in place first and allow them to help me try to figure out, because it's crazy. It's crazy right now. I want to have tryouts and I want to meet my girls. I want to know what I have to work with, because once I know what I'm working with, I know where to start. And so all these things up in the air, I want to get back to school. I want to get back to normal, and I want to assess so that we can go forward.
Absolutely. Well, Jennifer, it's been great to have you here on the podcast today. Want to thank you and also Leanne Ramey for joining us here, and also want to thank again our Master of Atmosphere, Michael Johnson. For all of them, I'm Greg Ruff. That's all for now from the Hill. Purple Ties Podcast. Great stories of Trevecca Trojans and life on the Hill.